Let's talk about a truly fascinating time of change in Europe, a period we now call the Renaissance. It was a time when the world, in so many ways, was basically reborn.
And our story really kicks off with this incredible building. This is the dome of the cathedral in Florence, Italy. Just an absolute masterpiece of architecture from the 1400s. And, it tells us so much about what made the Renaissance so special. This brand new belief in what human beings were capable of.
So what even was the Renaissance? Well, the word literally means rebirth. But to really get what was being reborn, we first need to take a quick look in the rearview mirror at what the world was like right before all of this happened.
So here's our game plan. We're going to step back into the Middle Ages, then see how a terrible disaster, the Great Plague, completely shook everything up. From there, we'll watch this incredible rebirth happen in art and new ideas, and we'll finish up by looking at how this period from hundreds of years ago still, believe it or not, affects our world today. Okay, so let's dive right in. To understand the huge changes of the Renaissance, we gotta get a feel for the world it came from, the Middle Ages, a time when society felt, well, kind of locked in place. The system that ran the whole show back then was called feudalism. The easiest way to think about it is like a super strict social ladder. And wherever you were born on that ladder, well, that's where you were going to stay for your whole life. It was pretty much a pyramid. Right at the tippy top, you had the crown, the king or queen. Just below them were the powerful nobles and church leaders. Then came the knights, the warriors. And down at the very bottom, making up about 90% of everybody, were the common people. Most of these commoners were people called serfs. And what that meant was they weren't exactly free. They were literally tied to the land they worked on, and they couldn't just pack up and leave without getting permission from their lord.
This map here shows a typical manor. For a serf, this was their entire universe. They worked the land, and in return, the lord of the manor gave them a place to live and some protection. It was a tough life, for sure, with very little freedom or chance to do something different.
But this very rigid, very predictable world was about to be completely shattered. A massive and terrifying event was coming that would turn absolutely everything upside down. 25 million. Just let that number sink in. That's how many people are thought to have died from the Black Death in just a few years. It was almost half the entire population of Europe. I mean, it's an absolutely unimaginable disaster.
The disease came on trading ships, spread by fleas on rats, and it was horrifying. One person who lived through it wrote that victims had black and purplish blotches on their skin and strange egg-shaped swellings in their armpits. There was no cure, and it just ripped through towns and cities with terrifying speed.
Seriously, just think about that for a second. If half of everyone you knew was gone. The Black Death didn't just cause death, it completely broke the old system. The old rules of feudalism just started to fall apart. It was tragic, of course, but it also, really unexpectedly, created new opportunities for the people who survived. So out of all that chaos and destruction, how did society even begin to rebuild? Well, a totally different world started to take shape, especially in the rich city-states of Italy.
With way fewer people, workers were suddenly really valuable. They could actually ask for more freedom and better pay. A lot of them moved to the cities, and power and money started to pool in new places, like the busy trading hubs in Italy, cities like Florence and Venice.
And this new era became known as the Renaissance. It's a French word, and it literally means rebirth. So what was being reborn? It was a rediscovery of all this incredible knowledge from ancient Greece and Rome, ideas about art, science, and how to run a government that had basically been lost for centuries. So what did this rebirth actually look like in real life? Well, it was a whole new way of seeing the world, and you can see it everywhere in the amazing art and buildings from that time.
Remember this dome from the start? For hundreds of years, nobody had been able to build something this huge. Finishing it showed a brand new confidence, a belief that through smarts and skill, people could achieve incredible things.
And you can totally see this new mindset in the art. Artists like Michelangelo started to celebrate the beauty of the human body itself, not just as a religious figure. This whole new way of thinking was called humanism. It was this idea that people, their lives here on Earth, and what they could accomplish were all really important and worth celebrating.
Now, what's so cool about this painting is how it perfectly shows the rebirth part of the Renaissance. It's called the School of Athens, and it's filled with all the great thinkers from ancient Greece and Rome. The artists and scholars of the Renaissance were digging up this old knowledge and using it to inspire all their new, amazing work.
Now, a new way of thinking, this powerful, this new confidence in humanity, this thirst for knowledge, it wasn't just going to stay in Italy. These ideas started spreading all across Europe. Pretty soon they would travel clear across the oceans.
All that confidence and curiosity helped kick off what we call the Age of Exploration. European explorers with new ideas and new technologies set out to map the world and find new ways to trade.
But, and this is a really important but, the spread of this worldview had complicated and often terrible results. For a lot of Europeans, explorers like Christopher Columbus were heroes discovering a new world. But for the indigenous peoples who already lived in the Americas, his arrival was the beginning of an invasion, of new diseases, and of the destruction of their cultures.
And that leaves us with a really critical question, one that's important to think about whenever we look at history. Whose story gets told? The Renaissance was, without a doubt, a time of incredible achievement that shaped the world we live in today. But its legacy is also a powerful reminder that the exact same event can mean wildly different things, all depending on your point of view.
Hello and welcome back to The Deep Dive. I am so excited that you are here with us today.
We really are.
Whether you are listening on the bus, walking to school, or, just hanging out at home, we are about to go on a journey. And I don't mean a journey across a map, I mean a journey through time.
That is right. Today, we are not just reading history. We are stepping into it. We are looking at a time that really set the stage for the modern world we live in. It's going to be a bit of a road trip.
I love road trips. But before we start the car for this one, I have a question for you. And I want you, our listener, to really think about this.
Okay.
Imagine your classroom, or your town, or even your whole country. Now imagine if half of the people suddenly disappeared. Just gone.
It's a terrifying thought, really.
It is. How would the world change? Who would do all the jobs? I mean, who would grow the food? Would the people left behind be scared? Would they be richer? Poor?
It sounds like the plot of a science fiction movie, but the thing is, this actually happened. And the answer to those questions helps explain how Europe moved from the Middle Ages into the time we now call the Renaissance.
So that's our mission today. To understand that transition, we're going to look in the rearview mirror at the Middle Ages. We want to understand how a really strict system of knights, castles, and kings just fell apart.
And how that paved the way for a brand new way of seeing the world.
Right. And that brings us to a really important word for today, worldview.
Worldview, yes.
Okay, let's unpack this. It sounds like a big word, but it's actually pretty simple, right?
It is. Think of a worldview like a pair of glasses. So if you put on a pair of glasses with, say, red lenses, everything you see, the trees, the sky, your friends, it all looks red.
You can't help it.
You can't help it. It's the filter. A worldview is the way a whole society looks at things. It's their values, their beliefs.
So if your worldview says God controls everything, then when it rains, you thank God.
Exactly. And when it doesn't rain, you pray to God. That's the pair of glasses you're wearing.
So the people in the Middle Ages were wearing a very specific pair of glasses. And today, we're going to see what happens when those glasses get smashed and they have to find a new pair.
Precisely. To understand the Renaissance, which is, so famous for its art and invention and this idea of rebirth, we have to understand the old world first. We have to start with the system that ruled Europe for centuries. Feudalism.
Feudalism, okay. Now, if you're a student, you have definitely seen the triangle or the pyramid in your textbook.
Yes, the pyramid is the best way to visualize it. Feudalism was a hierarchy.
A hierarchy. Can you define that for us quickly?
Sure. A hierarchy is just a ranking system. It means people are ranked one above another according to their importance. Think of a ladder. In a hierarchy, you know exactly who is above you and who is below you. There's no confusion.
Okay, so let's climb this pyramid. Who is at the very, very top?
The crown. The king or the queen. In this system, they technically own all the land in the entire kingdom.
So nobody else really owned anything. It was all just borrowed.
In a way, yes. And right below the king, you have the nobles. These are your barons, your dukes, the big, wealthy families. But, and this is really important, you also have the church leaders at this exact same level.
The abbots and bishops.
The abbots and bishops, yes. Because in the Middle Ages, the church had as much power and sometimes as much land as those wealthy noble families. They weren't just religious leaders, they were like princes.
Okay, so crown at the top, then nobles in the church. Who's next?
Below them, you have the knights. These are the soldiers, the protectors, the guys in the metal suits.
Got it. And then at the very bottom, holding everyone else up.
You have the commoners. And this huge group includes two types, freeholders and serfs.
And that bottom layer it's huge.
That massive! We are talking about 90% of the population. If you traveled back in time, statistics say you wouldn't be a knight, you'd be a peasant.
So how did this whole system work? Why would the king give a huge chunk of land to a baron? He didn't just give it away for free, did he?
No, nothing was free. It was a deal based on three things: land, loyalty, and duty.
Okay.
The king gives a large piece of land. It was called a manor, or a fief to a noble. In exchange, the noble promises loyalty.
And what does that loyalty look like in practice?
He promises to fight for the king. He has to provide knights and soldiers when there's a war. He has to pay for the armor and the horses and everything.
Land for loyalty. That's the deal.
That is the deal. And then the noble does the exact same thing downwards. He gives smaller pieces of his land to knights, and the knights promise to fight for him.
But the people at the bottom, the peasants, they aren't fighting, they're farming.
Yes, and that's where the manor comes in. Let's try to visualize it. If you were a bird flying over medieval Europe, you wouldn't see a lot of big cities. You would see little villages surrounded by huge fields.
And the fields were divided into long strips. I've seen pictures of this.
Exactly, like long ribbons of land. Imagine a big field cut into dozens of these ribbons. Some strips of land belonged to the noble. Everything grown there went straight to him. Some strips were for the church to feed the local priest. And the rest were for the peasant families to grow their own food.
Why strips, though? Why not just give everyone a square patch of land?
It was about fairness, surprisingly. The land wasn't all the same quality. Some of it was rocky, some was near the river, some was dry. By giving everyone strips in different parts of the field, everyone got a mix of good soil and bad soil.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But the life for these peasants,
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't a vacation, was it?
Oh, far from it. It was brutal, hard labor from sunrise to sunset. They had to build roads, clear forests with just axes, plow fields behind oxen, and on top of all that, they had to give a portion of everything they grew to the lord of the manor.
So you work all day in the hot sun, and then you have to give away a chunk of your own food.
A big chunk, correct. And you mentioned there were two types of peasants, freemen and serfs. This is a really crucial distinction.
A freeman sounds, well, free.
Relatively. A freeman rented their land. They could technically move if they wanted to, though they rarely did because, where would they go? It was expensive and dangerous.
But the option was there.
The option was there. But for serfs, that's a totally different story. Serfs were not allowed to leave the manor without the lord's permission.
So if I'm a serf and I want to visit my cousin in the next village over, I have to ask my boss for a permission slip.
You have to ask your lord, yes. You were literally tied to the land. You were born there,
Yeah.
and you were expected to die there.
This sounds terrible. It sounds a lot like slavery.
Well, and here's where it gets really interesting. There's a big debate among historians about this very question. We have conflicting viewpoints in the sources.
Okay, let's hear them. Viewpoint A.
Viewpoint A is the negative view. It says this was just exploitation. The peasants lived in extreme poverty. They had zero freedom. They were completely repressed. It was a miserable existence designed only to keep the rich people rich.
That's hard to argue with. But what's viewpoint B? How could there possibly be a positive spin on this?
Viewpoint B focuses on stability and safety. You have to remember, the world outside the manor was incredibly dangerous. There were constant wars, bandits, wild animals. There was no police force.
So the manor was like a safe zone, a bubble.
Exactly. The deal was, the peasant works, but the lord protects. If invaders came, the peasants could all run inside the castle walls for safety.
So it was a trade. Your freedom for your safety.
It was. And, strictly speaking, it worked for a while. Between the years 1000 and 1300, the population of Europe actually grew from about 40 million to 100 million.
Wow.
Agriculture boomed, forests were cleared for new farmland, so people were surviving and, reproducing, the system was stable.
But they were illiterate, uneducated, and completely stuck.
Yes, for most, the manor was the absolute limit of their life experience. But humans, being humans, they cooperated. The sources show us these images of peasants working together, all the men haying in a field, everyone helping with the plowing. They had to help each other to survive.
Okay, so that's the rural life, the country life. But not everyone stayed on the farm forever. There was an escape hatch, wasn't there? There was. The town. Now, when we say town in the Middle Ages, we aren't talking about modern cities with skyscrapers and subways. Paint a picture for us.
Imagine a small settlement growing up near a big castle or a large monastery. It has these thick stone walls all around it for protection. Inside, the streets are narrow, they're winding, probably unpaved.
Is it clean?
Not at all. It is incredibly crowded. It is dirty. People just threw their garbage and waste right into the street. It was absolutely rat infested.
Sounds charming. So why would anyone want to go there? Why leave the fresh air of the farm for a smelly, dirty town?
One word: freedom.
Freedom from the Lord of the Manor.
Yes. There is a specific law, a rule that became famous all over Europe. If a runaway serf could manage to stay inside a town for a year and a day without being caught, they became a free person.
A year and a day? That
Yeah.
is so specific. It's like a game of hide and seek with the highest stakes possible.
It really was. If you were caught before that time was up, you were dragged back to the manor and probably punished severely. But if you made it, you were free.
And if you made it, you could build a new life.
Yeah.
In the town, people didn't just farm. They made things. They traded. And this is where we see the rise of the guilds.
The guilds. Yeah.
So the guilds, these are like teams or maybe clubs.
Think of them as a mix between a very strict club and a modern labor union. A guild was an organization for a specific job. So there was a guild for bakers, a guild for shoemakers, a guild for weavers.
And what did the guild do? Why did you have to join one?
They controlled everything. If you wanted to bake and sell bread in that town, you had to be in the Bakers Guild. No exceptions. They set the prices, so no one could undercut you. They set the standards of quality, so you couldn't sell bad bread that would make everyone look bad.
And they took care of their own members.
Yeah, they did. That was a huge part of it. If a guild member got sick or was injured and couldn't work, the guild helped their family. They paid for funerals. They supported widows and orphans. It was a real safety net.
That sounds pretty modern, actually. A lot like insurance.
It was a support system. But getting into a guild wasn't easy. There was a very specific career ladder you had to climb.
Okay, walk us through the ladder. I'm an 8-year-old boy in a medieval town. What happens to me?
You start as an apprentice. Your parents would arrange for you to go and live with a master, an expert in the craft, like a master carpenter. You live in his house, you work for him every day, you don't get paid in money, you are there to learn.
An unpaid intern. Got it. How long does that last?
It could be 7 years, sometimes more. You are learning the secrets of the trade.
And after those 70 years?
After years of training, you might have to take a test or produce a small piece of work. If you pass, you become a journeyman.
Now, I love the origin of this word, journeyman.
Yes, it's great. It comes from the French phrase par journée, which means by the day.
Ah, so you're paid by the day.
Exactly. A journeyman was a wage earner. He could travel and work for different masters, earning money by the day.
And then the final step on the ladder.
The master. If you were really good and you had saved up enough money, you could create a masterpiece, a truly exceptional piece of work to show the guild how skilled you were. If they approved it, you could open your own shop and start training your own apprentices.
Now, we've talked a lot about he and him. What about the women? Were they just sitting around waiting to be rescued by knights?
Definitely not. The sources are very clear on this. Women worked incredibly hard.
In the country, on the manor.
Absolutely. In the country, rural women worked in the fields right alongside their husbands. Plus, they were responsible for weaving cloth, cooking all the meals, preserving food for the winter. I mean, without their work, the family would literally starve.
And in the towns, could they be part of this new world?
Yes. In the towns, women could actually work in certain guilds. They often worked in textiles making cloth or in brewing beer. And if a woman's husband died, she could often inherit his business and run it herself. She could become a master.
That's really impressive. What about education, though?
That was mostly for boys, it's true. But daughters of wealthy merchants or women who joined the church as nuns could become very educated.
You're thinking of someone like Hildegard of Bingen.
Exactly. She was a nun, but she was also a famous writer, a composer, a scientist, a scholar. She wrote medical books. So while women definitely had fewer legal rights than men, they were absolutely active participants in this society.
Okay, so we have the layout. We have the feudal pyramid holding everything in place. We have the busy, dirty towns offering a little bit of freedom. We have the hardworking peasants. It seems like a system that could last forever.
And it might have, if not for a ship that arrived in Messina, Sicily in the year 1347.
This is the turning point, the moment everything changes.
It is. The ship came from the east, from the Black Sea. When it docked, the people on the shore saw something absolutely horrifying. The sailors on board were dying.
Describe it for us. What did they actually see?
They saw black and purplish blotches on the sailors' skin. They saw these strange egg-shaped swellings in their armpits and groin. The sailors were caulking, moaning, vomiting blood.
That is the stuff of nightmares.
It was the Black Death, the bubonic plague.
And they had no idea what caused it, did they? They didn't have microscopes or germ theory.
No, they thought it was bad air, a miasma, or maybe a punishment from God. We know now that it was a bacteria spread by fleas that lived on rats, but back then they were helpless. And because the towns were so dirty and crowded, the rats were everywhere.
And so the disease spread fast.
Incredibly fast. Within just 2 years, it had spread across almost all of Europe. There was no cure. If you got those swellings that were called buboes, you were almost certainly going to die horribly within days.
The numbers are just staggering.
We are talking about 25 million people. That is somewhere between 1/3 and 1/2 of the entire population of Europe.
1/2.
Gone. Imagine looking at your class or your town and half of the people are just gone. Whole villages were completely wiped out, nothing left but empty houses.
This brings us right back to that big question we asked at the start of the show. If half the people disappear, how does the worldview change?
Well, first, the economy just breaks. We have to look at what the sources call the math of the manor.
Okay, lay the math on us.
Think about supply and demand. Before the plague, there were way too many workers. Labor was cheap. A lord could hire a worker for maybe 1 penny a day. If a worker complained or asked for more,
The Lord could just say, fine, leave. There are 10 other guys waiting for your job.
exactly. High supply of workers meant low wages. The lord had all the power. But after the Black Death, suddenly most of the workers are dead. Labor is scarce. The fields are full of crops, but there is no one to harvest them.
So the workers who survived, they suddenly have all the power.
Yes, they started demanding higher wages. Instead of 1 penny a day, they wanted 3 pennies a day.
That's a 300% raise.
And the lords had to pay it, or their crops would rot in the fields and they'd make no money at all. This completely broke the feudal system. The manor started going bankrupt because they couldn't afford the workers. And the serfs realized they didn't have to stay and suffer anymore. They could leave, they could go to the towns and get paid well. The bond between the lord and the serf was snapped.
So the greatest tragedy in European history actually led to more freedom and more money for the survivors.
It is a dark irony, but yes, it shook the very foundations of that hierarchy. And once that hierarchy started to shake, it didn't stop. This leads us directly into a time of serious unrest.
Wars and revolts. Let's talk about the 100 Years' War.
Right. This was a long, terrible war between England and France. It actually started just before the plague in 1337. It devastated the countryside. But there is one technological shift here that is really, really important.
The longbow.
The longbow. Before this, the knight in his shiny armor on his huge horse was basically a tank. He was unstoppable on the battlefield. A peasant with a pitchfork couldn't tie him.
But the longbow changed that whole equation.
It did. Ordinary archers, peasants, really could shoot these powerful arrows that could pierce thick metal armor from a long distance.
So the noble knight wasn't the ultimate weapon anymore. A regular guy with a bow and some training could take him out.
Exactly. It completely leveled the playing field on the battlefield. The noble wasn't invincible anymore. And at the same time all this was happening, the peasants were getting very angry back at home.
Why were they revolting? I thought they were getting paid more.
They were, but the nobles were trying to slap huge taxes on them to pay for this expensive war. So they were taking that new money right back. Plus, you have all this tension after the plague. The peasants were tired of being treated like dirt.
We see these huge revolts in France and England, right?
Yes. In France, it was called La Jacquerie.
Why that name?
Because the nobles made fun of the peasants. They had a nickname for them. They called them all Jacques Bonhomme. It's like calling every farmer in English Jack. It was an insult. So the peasants rose up, they burned castles, they killed nobles. It was vicious.
And in England?
In England, you had leaders like Wat Tyler and a really interesting preacher named John Ball.
I have a quote here from John Ball. It's incredibly powerful. He said, "They are clothed in velvets, and we are called slaves."
It's amazing, isn't it? He was calling out the fundamental inequality. He was essentially asking, why are some of us masters and some of us slaves if we are all human, all children of God? He was challenging the whole idea of the hierarchy.
What happened to these revolts? I mean, did they win?
Militarily, no. They were crushed brutally. The leaders were captured and executed. But the idea of feudalism, the idea that the peasants would just accept their place quietly in the bottom, that was dying. You couldn't put that genie back in the bottle.
And this leads to a whole new social structure. We are moving from a world where power is based on land to a world where power is based on money.
Correct. In the old feudal days, power was land. If you had land, you were a noble, you had power. But now, with the towns growing, you had this new group of people: merchants, shopkeepers, bankers.
The middle class.
The middle class. They weren't nobles, but they certainly weren't peasants. And some of them were getting very, very rich.
They wanted to show it off.
Oh, absolutely. If you made a fortune selling wool, you wanted the finest silks, the most expensive dyes, the flashiest jewels. You wanted to display your wealth.
And the nobles. They did not like this, did they?
They hated it. They felt that only they should be allowed to look wealthy and powerful. Which brings us to one of the most fascinating things in the sources: the sumptuary laws.
The fashion police.
Literally. These were laws passed by the nobility to control consumption. They made it illegal for ordinary people to wear certain fabrics or colors.
So wait, even if I'm a rich merchant and I have the money to buy a purple velvet jacket, the law says I can't wear it because I'm not a baron.
Exactly. The law might say only a duke can wear ermine fur, or only a knight is allowed to wear gold spurs. The nobles were trying to use the law to protect their status because they couldn't use money to distinguish themselves anymore. The merchants were catching up, and in some cases surpassing them.
And it wasn't just clothing that was changing. It was the very concept of time itself.
This is such a profound shift in worldview. On the manor, time was natural. Sun up, sun down, the seasons. You didn't need to know it was 2:00 p.m. You just needed to know the sun was high in the sky.
But in the town.
In the town, business is happening, deals are being made, and most importantly, wages are being paid by the hour. The phrase, "time is money," starts here. If you are paying someone for their time, you need to be able to measure it accurately.
And that's when we see the invention of the mechanical clock.
In the early 1300s, suddenly, clocks start appearing on church towers and in town squares, bells ringing out the hour. Suddenly, life is divided into these measurable, equal segments. It's a huge shift in how people think. We became obsessed with measuring time.
So we have a changing economy, a changing social structure, and changing technology. But we can't talk about the Middle Ages without talking about the biggest thing in people's lives: religion.
Religion was the absolute center of everything. You have to remember, life was incredibly hard. Famine, plague, war. The hope for heaven was what got people through the day.
The church was a hierarchy too, right? Just like the feudal system.
A perfect parallel. The Pope at the very top, then archbishops, bishops, priests, and finally the parishioners, the regular people, at the bottom.
And everyone paid the tithe.
The tax to the church. Usually 10% of your crops or your earnings, but people also gave their labor voluntarily. I mean, just look at the great cathedrals.
Places like Notre Dame in Paris or Chartres.
These are massive, unbelievably complex stone buildings. They took decades, sometimes centuries to build. The sources describe serfs and nobles working side by side, pulling wagons full of stone together in silence as an act of devotion to God.
It was a true community effort.
It was, and the whole goal was to inspire thoughts of God. When you walked into one of those cathedrals with those soaring high ceilings and the light streaming through stained glass, you were supposed to feel small, and you were supposed to feel the immense glory of heaven.
Now, what about education? We talked about apprentices learning trades, but what about book learning, reading and writing?
For a long, long time, the monks and nuns were the educated ones. Monasteries were the libraries and universities of the world. They copied all the books by hand. But by the end of the Middle Ages, universities started growing all over Europe.
The sources say there were 80 universities by the end of the 1400s.
Yes, learning was starting to spread beyond the church. But we also have to talk about who was included and who was excluded. It wasn't just Christians living in Europe.
Right. We need to talk about the Muslims and the Jews.
In Spain, for much of the Middle Ages, you had the Muslim civilization. The city of Cordoba was a massive center of learning. They had huge libraries and universities long before Northern Europe did. They preserved the ancient knowledge, math, science, Greek philosophy that Europe had largely lost after the fall of Rome.
And the Jewish communities.
Jewish people lived in towns across Europe, but they faced a great deal of intolerance. They were banned from most professions. They couldn't join most guilds or own land. So many became merchants, or, importantly, money traders and bankers, because Christians were often forbidden from charging interest on loans.
And when the Black Death hit,
This is a very dark chapter. When the plague hit, people were terrified. They were desperate for someone to blame. And in many places, they scapegoated the Jews. They created these horrible, false rumors that Jews were poisoning the wells.
And the result was violence.
Massacres. The source mentions a horrific event in Strasbourg in 1349 where hundreds of Jewish people were murdered. It shows us that while religion gave people hope and community, it could also be twisted to justify terrible intolerance.
So we have this picture of a world that is deeply, deeply religious. I want to talk about that map mentioned in the notes, the Psalter map. I find this fascinating.
Oh, this is a great visual for the medieval worldview. It's a map of the world, but it looks nothing like a GPS map you'd see today. It's a flat circle. And right in the dead center, the bullseye, is the city of Jerusalem.
Because that's the most important, the most holy city.
Exactly. And at the very top of the map, it's not the North Pole, it's heaven. You can see Jesus there watching over the world. This map isn't designed to show you how to get from point A to point B. It's designed to show you what matters in their universe. It is a religious worldview put on paper.
But as we get closer to the Renaissance, that map starts to change, doesn't it? People start questioning.
The plague made people question everything. They asked, why did God let this happen? Why didn't all our prayers work? Why didn't the church save us?
And they saw the church getting richer and richer while they were suffering.
Exactly. So the authority of the church, just like the authority of the king and the nobles, was being seriously challenged.
Okay, let's bring this road trip to a stop for a second and just look at where we have arrived.
We started with feudalism, this rigid, stable pyramid. Everyone knew their place. King, noble, peasant.
Then, the Black Death hit. A terrible tragedy that killed millions, but, ironically, broke the chains of the serfs.
Those survivors moved to towns, they started businesses, they formed guilds. A new middle class rose up with money in their pockets and a desire for fancy clothes.
And with clocks ticking on the towers and longbows piercing knights' armor, the old ways were just crumbling.
All of this turmoil, all of this death and change and questioning, it created a vacuum. A space for something new to be born.
And that something new is the Renaissance.
Which is a French word that literally means rebirth. It wasn't just that people suddenly decided to paint pretty pictures and invent things. It was that the old world had been so shaken apart that it allowed for new ideas, new art, and a new way of seeing humanity's place in the world to finally grow.
That is such a powerful lesson. Sometimes the biggest changes in history, the biggest leaps forward, come from the most difficult and painful times.
Absolutely. The Black Death was a horror, but it was also the spark that ignited the changes that led to the modern world.
So, to our listener, look around your own town or your city. Can you see the difference between old ways of doing things and new ways? Are there things changing right now that maybe scare people, but might lead to something completely new and unexpected?
That is the great question of history, isn't it? It is always moving, always changing.
And here's a final thought to leave you with. We talked about how the mechanical clock completely changed the world. It introduced this brand new idea that time is money.
It changed how we sleep, how we work, how we think about our day, a total revolution.
So if mechanical clocks changed the human mind and the human worldview in the 1300s, what technology is changing how we perceive time and life today? Is it the smartphone in your pocket? Is it artificial intelligence?
Are we living through our own massive shift in worldview right now and we just don't fully see it yet?
Something to mull over. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Middle Ages.
Keep asking questions.
See you next time.